I was going to save some post-mortem for after the season, but I'll do a little bit with you. And I want to be completely honest. Like, this season has been hard for me.
FPL is one of the most difficult challenges in the world, and it is rare that you get the opportunity to dramatically improve as a player in a short period of time. But then it is rare to get the chance to learn firsthand from one of the greatest minds the game has ever seen. Over the next 100 minutes, the legendary Pras allowed me to ask the questions for which I have always wanted the answers. This wide-ranging conversation covers every aspect of FPL strategy, from risk engagement to projection models, from emotion management to the optimal reactions to results, both good and bad. I have never felt more equipped to face the challenges of the game than I do right now, and it is the result of this conversation, and I have no doubt that you will learn a lot from it too. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Today on the channel we have a very special guest indeed. This man is one of the most elite operators FPL has ever seen, boasting a record of 9 top 25k ranks, 5 top 10k finishes, and on 3 occasions he has ended the season inside the top 5,000 managers. This is a man who has been educated in 3 different continents, who has worked all over the globe, and who is a titan in the business world, both professionally and in FPL. This man is someone who can absorb incredible amounts of data and information, processing it all under the highest pressure before delivering it concisely and effectively to achieve the maximum return on your investment. He is someone who can take the most complex of concepts and make them understandable for the audience. And when it comes to this game we all love, this man is a master strategist, renowned for the depth of his planning and the consistency of his performance. And perhaps even more impressively, he is one of the most generous people in the FPL community, sharing his time, knowledge and passion on so many platforms with so many people. And today I am privileged to be afforded the opportunity to share a conversation with him. This is the Solio superstar. This is the wonder of the wire. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Pras. Welcome to the channel, mate. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderfully, and to have the front row seat on this amazing introduction that you always do, and your articulate manner in which you say things is just amazing. Obviously, I'm going to say thank you for the kind words, but also say I'm completely washed, man. I'm 800k. What is that introduction?
I mean, that is an incredible rank to someone in my position. But we will talk a little bit about your season and what may or may not have gone wrong in the course of the conversation. But first of all, let me ask by saying, well, let me ask, many people see you as one of the best strategists in FPL, if not the best, certainly in the public sphere. Could you summarise your general FPL strategy or philosophy for us? And also, how has that strategy evolved over the last 10 years or so?
Good question. I think people see me as such because that's what I do to make decisions, right? I mean, a lot of times, and we can take game week 28 as an example where there was threads on, is Wilson better, is Dango Otara better, or Sade is better? I generally don't tend to focus my energy on which one is better as much as maybe I should. Other people will have these heat maps and, tactically this is what is happening. I have generally had the approach that they're both good, right? They're both nice, but what else can I consider here which would make one better than the other? And so that takes me forward in terms of planning who could have a double, who could have a blank, and what would that change if I went for one over the other? And so my playstyle has always been look forward as far as it is reasonable to do so, and then make your decision. So before the times of the models, I'm sure we'll talk about Solio and others, I used to have a major big spreadsheet on, I used to have my main model because I work in finance, and the last tab used to be just my secret FPL tab. And I used to always have this maybe about 8 to 12 game weeks of fixtures for my players. I used to just manually do them because the hours I used to work were like till midnight. That was how life was at the time. And so I would always have that. So planning has been a core part of how I've played always. To your last question on how has it changed, we have planners now available. So people have made that job easier where you don't need to create that tab. You don't need to input fixtures for the next 12 game weeks. It exists. So I think that's the only way where it's a bit like I was using the abacus and now I use the calculator, but I'm still doing the same math.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the calculator because I have a question that involves that because you mentioned it on your interview with the podcast on Gary on the podcast, but I'll get into that later. One of the problems I have had this season is settling on a coherent strategy. I enjoy the planning aspects of the game, perhaps a little too much, and while I can come up with a great plan, I often struggle to stick to the plan, especially if an unexpected injury strikes or a bad game week rocks my confidence. Firstly, how important is it to have a consistent plan or strategy? And secondly, how do you decide when to stick with the plan or when to tweak or even overhaul it?
I think it changes every week, right? I mean, so let's say I have a 5-week plan and this week information changed in the sense that Haaland got injured. So you have to create a new plan. And I think doing that dynamically, evolving the plan is the only way to do it. We cannot be rigid with the plan. We cannot say, oh, I had decided back then that I'm going to hold Foden until game week 30. Well, Foden's not playing. So it has to be dynamic to a large extent, but we do overvalue sometimes information we get in 1 week versus what we've been thinking for many weeks. And examples of those could be things like, how good are Liverpool without Wirtz? Now, everybody's decided Liverpool without Wirtz are rubbish, absolutely rubbish. Well, they could be, but you could also get lucky if you had, let's say, an Ekitike or you had a Van Dijk or you had a Gakpo or a Salah captain. But we tend to overvalue. That first half against Nottingham Forest, they were so bad against Wirtz, without Wirtz. I'm just not going to pick any Liverpool players. But if your plan or your path involved getting a Liverpool player, I don't think you should deviate it that much. So it's a little bit of the more you do, the more you develop this. But I do think patience, and I know this is where we differ a lot, and a lot of, players who are newer to the game. Now, I'm not discrediting the way, anyone plays in any form, but I'm saying players that are newer in the game, they do tend to be a little bit more in terms of, I need to do something to gain. Sometimes you don't do something and let other people do something. That can also gain you because the players you have are also allowed to score points. Maybe you get lucky by them scoring points, but still they're allowed to score points.
I don't think luck exists in my world anymore. It is not.
That Henderson penalty save, I have to say sympathies for that. Come on. That is, what, a 20-point swing just on a penalty for two players you owned? So commiseration.
It's just the way this season's going, and it's always the week you sell them. It's my mate Trigger. The week before that, he sold Virgil van Dijk, had him from game week 1, and then he got a 17-pointer, and it's like it just never ends.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I will say though, we tend to remember the bad beats more than the times when we get lucky, and that's just human nature. I feel. This is not a philosophy podcast, but I do think we will remember only 2 or 3 good moments from last season, but remember about 10 bad moments from last season. That's just how we operate.
I'm happy to talk philosophy with you all day. I don't know if the audience would be into that, but we'll try and keep it on FPL.
Yeah.
Right, projection models and solvers are a controversial topic in FPL. I used to be dead set against them, but this season I have started flirting with them a bit, specifically Solio, who you are involved with. In prepping for this interview, I rewatched your excellent interview on the FPL podcast with Gary, in which you described solvers as an unbiased friend. And you also had a great quote, which is, if there is a complex mathematical equation, I am going to use a calculator. I don't need to prove how much I am a football guru. When it comes to the use of solvers, how much faith do you put in them? And how do you decide when to overrule the solver and when to trust it?
That's a very... very deep question in terms of there's so many layers to this answer. Let me see how I can articulate my thoughts. So I think the starting point is that the solver is only trying to help you, not to ruin your FPL season, right? It's just like, for me, it's always like everybody has that WhatsApp group or that on X a channel with their mates, right? And people go, guys, who do you think is better this week? Should I bring in Ekitike or João Pedro? And then 4 people will say João Pedro, 2 will say Ekitike, and then you will make your choice. You will say, okay, I trust this guy a little less. This guy is a little flaky. Okay, I'm going to get Ekitike. What have you just done? You've crowdsourced the answer. All you do with a solver is you do the exact same thing and you say, hey, solver, I'm looking to sell this guy. Who should I get? The solver will tell you over the next 4 weeks, Ekitike will score more points according to his fixtures and the minutes. But you can adjust all of this because you can go and say, actually, I don't think Ekitike starts all these games with Champions League being back. I'm going to reduce his minutes from 78 to 55 on average. And then now the solver will say, actually, if you think that, then João Pedro is better as a pick. So when people tend to think of models and they think I'm just looking for the answer and I follow the answer, that is so wrong. And I'm not here to defend models, right? I don't follow my models blindly. I never have.
I would hope you would defend them a bit. Yeah. You are the front man of Solio.
Well, I don't need to, right? I mean, people should use it as a toolkit amongst many other things. They should use the fixture ticker. They should use underlying data. They should watch the matches, watch the highlights. They should look at press conference quotes for little nuggets. And they should use the solver. They shouldn't use just one. It's just one other thing that you have on your back pocket. And there's various levels to it. You can just go on the solver and decide who you want to captain this week, or who this unbiased friend is suggesting is the better captain this week. You can again disagree. To answer your question on when do you know to disagree with it, I think you have to ask yourself what your beliefs are. And to do that, you do have to spend some time on the solvers. You do have to understand if the solver is telling me that this week Szoboszlai is a better pick than Dango Ouattara, why is it telling me that? So then you dive deeper into it. You say, okay, the solver thinks that Salah may not play 90 minutes. Oh, okay, the solver is saying if Salah plays 70 minutes, Szoboszlai is on penalties for 20 minutes. Interesting. Maybe I didn't think about that. Oh, Szoboszlai is going to play further forward because Wirtz is out. So his share of minutes as the number 10 is now higher than what I had 2 weeks ago. Okay, that's interesting why it's saying that. And then ultimately suggesting that there's not much in it between Szoboszlai and Wilson or Dango Ouattara. So once you spend that time, you actually give that time and energy to the model in terms of why it's doing certain things. Either you can choose to ignore it or you can try to change it to say, I disagree with you. Szoboszlai is still going to play right back. Frimpong's still not 100%. And then get to the right answer. I just think that your time spent on the game is always worth doing that than doing other things like once you watch the highlights, once you watch the press conferences, going into heat maps or looking at positional strength and this stuff, that's all very, very helpful. But it doesn't, for me, it's not long-term and it's very hard to predict that. But a model is using a lot more longer-term data. It's using a lot more things that are underlying. And I feel that gives me a better advantage to somebody else who's only doing or only scratching the surface in terms of the other stuff. I don't know if that helps with the answer, but I have always used predicted points as a metric to make my benching decisions, make captaincy calls, and I'm saying using as a guide, right? I will use other things as well. There's many times I go against the model. There's many times I go with the model, but I use that as one of my data points. But I think the most powerful thing about the model is not these two things. It's the planning, which I love, which is what has tended to attract me towards these solvers is how do you plan this? So when you have one free transfer this week, and let's say you have Enzo Fernandez, and you're deciding, should I bench Enzo and get somebody else, or should I save a free transfer? You get these questions a lot, right? Should I do this or should I save a transfer? I go, man, like, I'm not going to spend all this time on your team. I'm not going to think about what is your path. When are you going to bench boost? When are you going to wildcard? Do you have a wildcard left? Do you have other problems in your team? I have no time or capacity to help you like that. Well, a model will do that. A model will look at your team. A model will say, you know what? Your team is pretty good without Enzo Fernandez. If you save a transfer this week and instead you used that 2 free transfers to make a double move, which gets you even more points predicted, not actual, then that's more impactful than just using it this week just because everybody else is doing it. I think that's the power of these models which people underestimate. And you don't have to do it. You may choose to do this move this week, but I'm saying this is something that it's very hard to quantify, and it's even harder to ask your trusted friend, hey, should I sell Enzo this week or not?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that ties into something that you've talked about in the past with captaincy. It's like collecting the relics. That always stood out to me when you first said it earlier this season. Collecting the captaincy relics, I like that. And it's something I haven't done enough. I always feel like I can catch the differential, and it's maybe that's one of my biggest issues. But
I mean, with the word differential, let me just ask you on this. The thing with differential is it's often misspoken in the community on what a differential constitutes, right? A differential is, if we go into predicted points, and if we say two people have similar expected points, this, we're podding before game week 28, so a week where Bruno and Haaland are on almost exactly the same predicted points. Now, captaining Bruno for me is a differential, because you're not giving up a lot in terms of the potential that they could score, but you're going for the lower owned player. If instead you're picking somebody like, let me use a wild example in Van Dijk, who's low owned, who's got a good fixture, but his predicted points are somewhat lower than Bruno or Haaland, that's a punt more than a differential. Maybe they're the same thing in other people's eyes, but in that case, you're simply hoping to get lucky than just actually saying, I'm not giving up a lot, but going for the lower EO player. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense to me. It's like if I was thinking of going for Anthony Gordon against Everton as captain, that's more of a punt than Bruno Fernandes, even if I do think Anthony Gordon might outscore him.
If you do think that, I recommend go on Solio and let Solio ask you a couple of questions indirectly. It's going to ask you, so tell me, how many minutes does Gordon play? And you're going to put a number, let's say 75. It's going to ask you, how many minutes do you think Walter Made plays? Or essentially to understand what is the share of penalty that he has, or things like that, which will then determine something. And then it'll ask you, how many goals do you think Newcastle will score? What is Gordon's goal share? What do you think Gordon goal shares? Then you get to Man United, ask the similar question. If you still think Gordon is higher, do that. And if you still think that the model is wrong and your beliefs are better, captain Gordon. In that case, that is truly a differential, and I agree with you.
I think this season I am proving that I am not better than the models. But no, it's I wildcarded in game week 27, and Solio hated my draft. It hated the strategy. It spent the next 5 weeks trying to get me back to the team I had. And it's tough because, like, for me, the gamble was going against Haaland, and I was going to go for Salah. I probably won't, but that was the thinking. I can get this big player with the high potential based on his past performance to take on a player owned and most likely captained by the majority of the field. So if it works, then, that's a big boost. And obviously if it doesn't, then, I'm in the mud, but I'm in the mud anyway.
I mean, this is, again, if you go on Solio and you increase your risk, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, I want the maximum risk possible for the lowest loss of expected points. And I'm trying not to get too geeky here, but what it's simply trying to say is that, let's put it in a vacuum. Instead of Haaland, you go Salah, right? And then you also captain Salah. So now if both score the same points, you got the same points as the people who had Haaland. But what you're trying to hit is to try to get lucky where Salah gets a double return, Haaland gets a blank, and you make 30 points on everybody. So it's a way to increase your risk, but not give up too much expected points, is what, again, that you can play around in these models to achieve. And I want to say one other thing. The underlying point of these models is they're based off, at least Solio is based off market data, right? And me as a pragmatic person who doesn't have enough time to make all these edits in the models, I am okay to say that these market odds are better than me, better than my beliefs. Especially the next week market odds. 5 weeks later, things can change. Next week, when I see the Rob T numbers, I say, you know what? If they've got Haaland that higher compared to a Thiago, they're probably right that Haaland is more likely to score more points than Thiago. Why? Because these are two-way odds, right? Somebody's putting money that Haaland will score, somebody's saying he will not, and they're trying to find the right percentage or probability. And I have just grown to use that as a decision-making tool with full understanding that they can be wrong, but even my beliefs can be wrong as well. They can, but over 100 decisions, they will be more right than me. That's just how I have thought about it.
Yeah. Right, I'll get back into the solvers a little bit later, keep mixing it up, keep it interesting.
Yeah.
I have done a few interviews in the past, and one thing I am trying to learn from them is how to engage with risk effectively to maximise the potential for success. My friend Trigger, he says FPL is a process of risk management about limiting the potential damage each week and incrementally improving position. FPL Harry, he has said he will ensure he is never in a position to be hurt by a popular captain. And then there are people like your streaming partners like Trout, who spoke so lucidly about enjoying risk engagement and how he likes to save trips late for maximum impact against the field, knowing exactly what he needs to do to achieve his goals. And JC, who famously caught a 42-point wave from a triple Brentford defence on the free hit. Where do you stand when it comes to risk engagement and management in FPL? And what advice do you have for people like myself who may be engaging it a little bit too much?
It's a great way to ask the question, and I agree with pretty much everyone, right? I mean, there's no one way to play. That's why we love this beautiful game. Where I personally like to be is probably closer to Nick and Harry, where I think that people underestimate how long a season is and how many decisions we need to make. And the simplest way to do well every single year is to keep making good decisions, safe decisions. I know it's a dirty word in risk, but it's keep making good, safe decisions. Make sure you have the best 2 or 3 captains every single week, so that even if you don't own the best, you're owning the people who are likeliest to haul every single week. And you're being conservative in your strategy. It's easy to take hits to catch up to the players that you want, but 4 points is hard. It's hard to make 4 points. I know hits feel easy. I've taken 4 this season. We'll talk about this season later. But they feel easy and they feel good at that point because you're saying, I'm doing something. I'm going to change it around by doing it. But the other way to do it is say, I have a plan. I'm going to stick to the plan. I have the right guys and I will make my moves, or I will make my, it's like moving my chess pieces. I will do them not this week, but next week, ensuring at all times that I'm not exposing myself to a lot of risk. Then there is the James or the Trout way to play, or the Johnny way to play. Johnny is actually the most passive out of everybody, but also the most highest risk taker for chips. So I think I'm learning his way of playing this season myself. Well, he'll be the most passive between game week 22 to 27. He'll be like rolling. He's seeing everybody getting other midfielders. He's still running his Anderson and Ndai is not caring about it. And what he's trying to do is he's saying, you make your gains now. I'll use that one bumper week when there's some changes in information and then use it then. Another fantastic way to play. I really respect his style of play. He's been very successful in the way he plays. And then Trout, as you said, he has this thing of, if I can take risk, I will always choose risk over the no risk. All of them work. And I should also actually highlight Late Riser, who I pod with. I think his style is also, I'm going to take as much risk as possible or try to go as much against the crowd. He almost sees the game as not him against the FPL game. It's him against the crowd. So he'll always see it as, if nobody's now going for Palmer, I'm definitely going for Palmer. If nobody's now, if everyone's selling Nico Riley, I'm definitely going to keep, of course, with reason, right? If he thinks that there is still reason to do it. And what that results in him is the season that he does, that things do work out for him. They work out to a level where he's almost winning the game. Yeah. And then when the seasons it doesn't work, then he has an average season. And that's another way to play, right? His highs are so high. Like he was 3 times close to winning the game. I cannot even dream of that.
Oh, he's a hero to me. Playterizer. He was like, when I first discovered like Twitter on FPL, he was the kind of the Maverick genius who would just take these wild chances and they come off, and it's like, I want to be that. I want that to be me, you know. But you know, he's finishing like 4th in the world, and I'm finishing like 400,000. but yeah, I love the bloke. I've got a couple of questions about him later as well.
Absolutely. Okay.
But I've got a structure. I've got a plan.
Yes,
I like
we're
a plan.
following the structure. Yes.
So on the topic of risk engagement, this season is a bit of a new experience for you, hanging out in the millions with us common folk deep into the season, although you have got out now. How have you found the challenges this season have brought you? How have you adapted your strategy as a result? And what lessons have you learned that could help those of us who have to chase from the back on a more regular basis?
I was going to save some post-mortem for after the season, but I'll do a little bit with you. And I want to be completely honest. Like, this season has been hard for me. Like, from a point of view of, I always play the game because of the planning. When I look at my team, I always see from the team over the past 15 years that this is the team people want to get. So because I've been planning, I've been making sure that I have the right players. This has been always the way I play. But for whatever reason, whether because things have not worked out or my players got injured or whoever I went for didn't work out, and the guy who I sold, Thiago to Ekitike is the perfect example, it just felt like I'm behind all the time. And it just didn't stop. And without jinxing it, this, last couple of weeks, I've been feeling that now it's coming back, where my team is now looking like people are buying my players. They're buying Van Dijk, they're buying Ekitike, they're buying other players that I own, like Thiago or whatever. So it feels like, okay, that feeling is coming back, and it's highly correlated, right? The better you do, the more other people want your players. So I have found this season difficult. Do I think that it was for particular reasons? Maybe we'll talk about that in a second as well. But the post-mortem for me is, I don't regret any of the hits that I had to take, because I did it so that my team can get ahead. I'm trying to push, which is not normal for me. Normally, like I said, I'm the grinder. I'm the guy who's just saving transfers. I'm trying to just make my move strategically, buy long-term players. But it's just, for one reason or the other, hasn't worked out this year. And I don't want to only blame it on luck, right? What happens is, initially, maybe it's bad luck, but then it gets into your head. Then you're on a tilt. Then you start to think, okay, how do I chase that? Then you go slightly more different. You play differently to how you normally play. And then you go, even this didn't work out. Maybe I'll take a hit now, and then I'll try to chase even more. Or I'll try to catch up to this mistake that I made, and I will correct it. But whatever the reason has been, I've had to catch up, and it just hasn't worked out. I have hit 400k. I think it was game week 19 or 20. I don't have my rank history in front of me because of the rank. I'm not monitoring it every single week for my own mental health reasons. So there was a point where actually it was looking like it's back. Like I can at least finish in the top 100k, which has been since 2012 or whatever.
Pras.
I still think I can. I still believe I can. Actually, not think, but I believe I can.
Yeah, I mean,
but I need to get lucky to do that.
80 points, 70 points, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm 114 away from the top 100k at the minute, and I am 1.6 million. So, you might be 60 points. FPL team will tell you.
It will tell me, but I'm not really thinking about that, to be honest with you. What I'm trying to think about is, how can I get ahead of people? How can I have a chip strategy that can give me that nitro boost? And ultimately, we're in the hands of the gods in terms of the FPL gods, and we have to also hope to get lucky. And if you do that, then everything is possible. So I do believe that I can still have a good enough season. But I don't think that I have played as well as I normally would because of initially not getting the rub of the green. Like I feel with Semenyo and João Pedro, it's pure bad luck. Whenever I've not owned them, they've gone mad. Whenever I've owned them, they've done nothing. And injuries like Gabriel getting injured, Bruno getting injured, everyone had them, right? But it was on top of other problems that I was already having, and my team was never ahead of the curve. I just felt I've not played that well.
Do you think the DEFCONs have thrown people?
I thought, I'm going to make an admission here, where I thought when the rules were changed that analytics will be even more superior because DEFCONs are hard to see, right? They are better modeled. All these bonus changes, they're not easy to see. They're better modeled. And so I felt that actually people, to do well, you have to rely even more on models. So in the early part of the season, I probably trusted myself a little less than what I normally would. Now, this doesn't mean models are right or wrong, but I just felt that I used less of my judgment than a normal season, and I used a little bit more of the models. This is not a criticism of the models, because now if I look at the models, it says you made good decisions, but you were very, very unlucky. But could I have also made slightly different decisions to get luckier? Like last season, no model would have told me to start the season with Salah and Haaland. I did that because I was like, I can see value there. Both are good. So I do have a little bit of regret that I over-relied a little bit initially, but that could have also meant that I got very lucky because I went in the season. So I don't blame DEFCONs at all. It's just, I've owned Anderson, Richards, Van Dijk, all the DEFCON guys. The other Anderson, the midfielder Anderson, I owned for 5 weeks. He didn't DEFCON once. He got 11, 11, 11, 10, 11, or something like that whenever I played him. And after that, he's got DEFCON every single week, I think, for the last 17 weeks. Some of these things you have to laugh it off, right? That you did dabble in it. It's not like I will never buy Anderson, the English Anderson. I will never buy him. It was not the case. When I went there, it didn't work out. And then I thought maybe I should switch to a 4 at the back. That's what's working out. Well, then Anderson started scoring points instead. So I think it's a path thing. I don't blame the game or the rules at all.
I wasn't meaning about blaming. It just, because it's a big change, maybe we haven't adapted to it, the strategy.
I think it adapts more to my style of play, to be honest with you. I would have expected to do better with these DEFCON changes than the other average manager who will still pick the flair picks over the boring picks. I'm very happy to pick a boring pick. I have respect for anyone that has Anderson, the midfielder, because that's the game, man. Like, you can either complain about it or you actually pick the guy who doesn't make you take any transfers, gets you 4 points, 4 to 7 points every single week. You can focus your energy and your transfers on something else. I don't mind it at all. I wish I was them.
For a selfish reason, at what point would you sack off the safe person and go for the more riskier player with the higher upside? Like, if I was making a transfer, at what point would I ignore an Elliot Anderson to go for a Harry Wilson?
I have already. I think so. 3 weeks ago, I could have gone straight to Thiago. I chose to go for Strand Larsen. That was exactly the moment where I feel I was not playing safe, because I should have saved a free transfer. I didn't. I said, I'll go Strand Larsen first. It worked out. This week, I could have saved a transfer as well. I mean, again, as I said, we're podding in the week when Harry Wilson and Dango are all the rage. I did choose to go Dango because I do want to attack the Burnley fixture. So I am already being less conservative than I would, because the first thought in a regular season for me is, can I save a free transfer? And if the answer is perhaps, yeah, probably, then I will save a free transfer. That's how I've always played. This season, I've been using them up every single week, which is another way of taking risk, right? But the risk here is the unknown risk that, what if a popular player gets injured and then I only have one free transfer? Well, then you have to take another hit, which I don't normally do a lot of. But I feel like I have to chase a little bit of these bigger hauls. But I always do it in my little bubble. I always do it in my sensible bubble. Because I feel if I look at, my team at the moment, I already have certain players that are differential enough that I don't need to chase too much. The Liverpool guys, not many people have. Double Brentford, not many people have. Double Man United mids, not many people have. So I think there's enough in there for me to chase that haul or that differential that I don't need to force it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I am weighing up whether to be more boring next season. I feel like it's a game where if you get ahead, it's easy, and if you're behind, it's hard, because you can't just make the boring pick. It's on when you're like top of the mini league, it's on everybody else to pick different players from your team, and you can just pick the best one. So, yeah.
No, I mean that's an important meta point. Just to elaborate on that, I said this at the beginning of last season when they introduced 5 free transfers, that the onus on, or the probability that if you have a good start, that you have a great season is now a lot higher. Because at the beginning of the season, if you do get lucky, your team value shoots up. You keep accumulating transfers because people are now buying your players. So they are using up 2-3 free transfers to get to your 2-3 players, while now you have 4 free transfers to now attack the next guy. So a good start has never been more important. I know it's not in our control, but it has never been more important for a good finish. Does it mean that you sack off your season by game week 10 if you've been unlucky? Not really. But I just think that next season, if there's one thing you want to wish, is just if you can get lucky in the first 6 to 8 game weeks, then you're off with a good team value with lots of transfers. You can play whichever way you want.
So with regards to that first 6 to 8 game weeks, would you go with highly owned, safer players, or would you have a few differentials, a few low-owned players in there to try and attack and get ahead?
I try to balance it every year. And like last season I talked about, I tried to get the good players because I could find some cheap gems. Like João Pedro was really cheap last year. There were a few cheap gems. Rodgers was very cheap. And I felt I can afford Salah and Haaland, who are both good. So I went different to most, but it was still within reason. This season, I tried to do the same thing. And I said, you know what? Everybody thinks Wirtz is great. Watkins is great. I'll get both. I'll make some sacrifices and I'll get both. It can slap you in the face where both can be rubbish. And then now you're stuck with both and you're off to a rubbish start. So I do try to go different. I really struggle when I see either it's a free hit week or a game week 1 wildcard or game week 1 teams or a wildcard week, and everybody's posting the exact same 15. And I do struggle with that a lot. I will very rarely have the same players. Maybe I'll have 9 of the same players, but I will always see where are the 2 where I can differentiate and I can have a little bit of an edge to the crowd. But like I said, I don't mind having 9 the same, because I do think that those 9 are the same for a reason. They're good picks.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned a couple of questions ago about the tilt. You mentioned that in your interview with Gary as well. I watched that interview again the other day's research.
Even I've forgotten my answers.
Well, I'm reminding you of them all.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned the tilt, which is what you were saying. It's like the impact of a negative outcome leads to making worse decisions to try and overcompensate. Something many people would say I've fallen victim to. How can we protect ourselves from the tilt, from compounding those bad outcomes?
I think believing in your decisions for more than a week, right? If you've made a transfer and if you've done something, you've not done it for 1 week. So the tilt can happen if you decide, I'm going to pick, some player from Watford. I said Watford, Wolves, who had the double game week, and I just want that return. But I don't like it, but I want it, and I'm going to go for it. And then you're on tilt because they blanked in that very easy fixture, and then you want to take them out immediately. I think that constitutes a tilt. If you look at fixture blocks and you plan longer term and you say, for the next 6 weeks, I'm going to get Chalobah or I'm going to get Enzo, they'll probably blank 3 or 4 out of those weeks. But the other 2, I'm going to stay, I will hope to get my return. So even if they blank 2-3 in a row, you can stay patient with them. And that's what avoids tilt. Now, this also can go 2 ways. Again, I go back to Ollie Watkins and Wirtz, where you can keep staying patient. Everybody else wildcarded them out. You stay and you say, you know what? They still have Burnley to go. And sometimes, you know what? It just doesn't work. And that's okay. Sometimes you can get unlucky in this game, or often you can. But in most times, if you do pick a fixture block, if you believe in those players longer term and you hold them, it just avoids tilt, because at all points, when your game week team loads or your bus team loads, you need to be thinking about which are the guys who are on the chopping block and which are the guys I will continue to stay patient regardless of the blank. And I think that's what good managers do. Just because a player blanks, they don't tilt on them if they've got good fixtures coming up. You often see this. People are now buying João Pedro. And he's had 4 amazing fixtures. Now he's going into playing Arsenal. If you had him before that, I understand. You got some points and now you want to keep him. That's all right. But if you're buying him now before Arsenal, you're planning to tilt. because he's going to, if he blanks in the next two, he's going to start dropping in price. You will start panicking. You're chasing points, and that is a recipe for tilt.
Right, I'm going to use an example from my team, which I know you've just said you don't like discussing people's teams.
No, I do. I mean, I've looked at your wildcard, so I can definitely help.
On my wildcard, I saved the money to get Mo Salah in for Cole Palmer after a 1 week punt for that Burnley game. And I had a weaker defence. I had Christopher Arger and Nordi Mukiele. Well, I had Mukiele anyway, but last week we saw Salah go off early when Liverpool needed goals. We saw Arger move to right back because Brentford had two right backs injured, and obviously Mukiele went off. Is it me giving into the tilt if I say Arger now, if he's at right back, isn't worth it? I got him in for the DEFCONs. I'm going to instead ignore the Salah plan, and I'm going to get Virgil van Dijk or Nico O'Reilly or both. Is that tilt, or is that reacting to information, or is it something only hindsight will determine?
No, so let's break it down. Virgil van Dijk and Nico O'Reilly becoming good picks shouldn't be news to you. You knew that at the time of wildcard, and you chose the Salah path despite that, right? You could have not had Palmer, or you could have not saved that money for Salah and just gone Van Dijk there. So that's the first thing I will say. So no information there has changed. Just because they scored, that should not really tilt you. Second thing is, Salah's still fine. Like, if you wanted to go down that path, he's probably, well, if you want to believe models, he's the best captain this week. Again, if your beliefs are that he again gets a pre-80-minute sub, maybe he's not. But if he goes back to his normal minutes...
At the same time, I was watching this highly respected podcast called the FPL Wire, and Zophar was saying they should be starting Rio Ungamoa over Mo Salah. So it's like...
I don't think that's going to happen. That's not going to happen. Look, I think it's a close call between keeping Palmer, but I would say with Ayer, Coyote is back, by the way. I know we're not talking specific game week, which means that he should play right back and Ayer should be all right to play. So I would say the sensible move here would be to continue on your path, or you just save the money, you save a transfer. Next week, with all that money in the bank, you can go nuts. You can do anything you want. So I don't think you need to knee-jerk a Van Dijk, or that would be tilt for me. Yes. Because you knew Van Dijk has good fixtures this week when you were wildcarding. You knew Nico O'Reilly is now playing in the 8.
Wow. Yeah, but then I watched Nico O'Reilly against Newcastle, and it's like, when it happens against your team, it's different. It's like he's going to do this. If he can do this against Newcastle, how can anyone stop him?
Well, or Ayer gets DEFCON, keeps a clean sheet, and Nico O'Reilly concedes. And then in the next fixture, which happens in 3 days, he's on the bench.
No.
That could also happen.
Maybe should have asked you this sooner than 3 hours before the deadline.
Have you done it already?
No, I haven't done anything yet.
Okay.
I'm not going to make any transfers before I talk to the great Pras. You talked me out of it. Now I'm thinking Salah's the one.
The irony is that by the time you publish this, the deadline would have passed and people would be listening to this saying, what an idiot, to one of us here.
I'll either be in the shed or I'll be on a walk. Right. You are the highest profile figure associated with Solio. With this being their first full season on the market, did you feel any additional pressure as a result of your association with them? And how do you counter the argument that Solio has been detrimental to your performance?
I get that a lot. And firstly, to clarify, no, absolutely no pressure, right? I mean, nobody is there looking at my decisions and saying, hey, this is anti-Solio if you do this move, right? So I'm making my...
They do.
This has got nothing to do with my involvement there. My involvement in Solio is simply because I absolutely love the set of people that are building this platform, right? And coupled with my belief that if you want to do well on a consistent basis, then model should be part of your toolkit. Not should be your only toolkit, not should be your telling you what to do, it should be part of your toolkit. And I do think what those guys are trying to build is to make decision making simpler for the masses, not for the people who are sitting in the basement on their Excel spreadsheets and all the time. It's for the masses, the guy who doesn't have time to look at all the highlights, who doesn't have time to plan, who doesn't have time to listen to podcasts. They can spend 10 minutes on Solio and make good decisions. I think that's the core thesis of it, and I really bought into it. So my involvement there was simply because I think Jorgen, Sertalp, James, Chris, obviously Johnny, Rob, I think these are just great people for the community who are trying to do a good job. Obviously, this is a venture. Everybody's trying to monetize whatever they try to do. But from the point of view of what they're trying to achieve more broadly, I think it's one of the better things that the FPL community, once they understand it, will achieve. So this is why I thought, if I can help, I'm happy to help. And my job is to help people understand that Solio is not the evil, it is your friend, right? So, and that's why I got involved. Now, for the season, I use Solio just as much as any other tool. There are many times I disagree with Solio, but I learn a lot from Solio. I use Solio a lot to just understand. If I thought, back in the season, early season, Bruno Fernandes was the rage. Everybody thought Bruno is playing DM. Why are you having Bruno Fernandes? I went on Solio and I said, you know what? Let me make his goals similar to an Elliot Anderson or similar to a Caicedo. Is he still a good pick? And it was showing that he's still a decent pick. So am I overcorrecting for the fact that Bruno is playing DM because he's still on penalties? Caicedo is not. Elliot Anderson is not. So these are things where I have learned a little bit more in terms of checking my own decision making. That am I doing the right thing? Let me change it and see if I'm correct. And so I value that, and I put my season down to only myself, not Solio, not any other tool, not my podcast. I used to get on the wire when I joined the first season. People were like, "Oh, you get influenced a lot by late riser, so you had a bad start." That season I finished fine, but I used to get that. "Oh, you're getting influenced," and come on, man! Like, I've played for 15 years. I can make my decisions, and I don't get influenced by the way. I do learn from people. I think there's something to be learned from every style. I learned from you the way you try to think about things. I've come to you before.
Is that why you're 800,000 in the world?
I mean, what I'm trying to say is everybody brings something to this game, and we shouldn't put it down to, were you talking to this friend and that's what led you to a bad rank? I think that brings down the friend. I think that's the wrong way to think about it.
Yeah, I think Solio is a spectacular program. Like, what they have built there, I think with the projections, people see them as predictions rather than projections. Whereas for me, like, the more I've talked about Solio, talked to Trout, James, the more I've looked into it, it's more like a individual FDR. So, like, rather than, Liverpool have a game of 4 difficulty, it's like, this game is 4.67 easiness for Szoboszlai, but it's 6.8 for Salah. And that's how I've started looking at it.
Absolutely. That's a good way to think about it.
I still haven't like fully invested. But after I interviewed James, they gave me a month's free trial. And I've been like waiting for the right moment to unlock it. And I think the running, it's going to have
Definitely
to be the running. Especially
Definitely
with having already used my wild card, I'm going to need every advantage I can get.
When you do get that, we will give you a lesson on stochastic optimization when you get there.
I don't know what that means.
Even I didn't know what that means. Maybe I still don't know what it means, but it's a cool word to say.
Yeah, I think Trout actually mentioned it a couple of times when I interviewed with him. I'm like, yeah, pal.
You do that.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I wish Trout was on more podcasts. I love the bloke. He was so good to talk to.
Yeah.
But I feel like if he sacked off Solio and just did podcasting, I think he'd be massive. And I also think it's important to say that there are people at Solio doing spectacularly well. Is it Chris, about top 3K or something?
Yeah.
Trout's comfortably top 100K or there or thereabouts.
Johnny will finish top 10K as usual.
Yeah, so it's all on you. Your bad season is...
Oh, me, I'm
you just
dragging
washed
everyone down.
Pras.
Exactly. That's how I started.
We've talked about this a little bit, but to go back to your interview with Gary once again, another quote which stood out to me was, if you want to consistently perform well, you have to learn to be boring. We have seen Andy from Let's Talk FPL turn being boring into a superpower this season, utilising suggestions from projection models frequently and refusing to transfer players after weeks of underperformance. And he's having a sensational season, like he's top 1K as we record. For someone like me, who has played the game in a very different way and underperformed for years as a result, seeing the way Andy has made solid, boring FPL play into an art form has been fascinating and eye-opening. When you talk of being boring, how much are you referring to using solvers as part of that equation? How do you learn to have faith in the projections if, like me, you don't, or you find yourself disagreeing? And how do you remain disciplined in boring play if it does not yield short-term results?
Great question. I think fixtures. Like, my answer is always fixtures. Like, if you believe in a player or believe in a team and your beliefs haven't fundamentally changed and they continue to have good fixtures, there's no reason to sell them. Because we work in a game where you have limited resources, which is number of transfers. So you can use it. Let's say you're bored of Van Dijk and you want to use it for Munoz, who's great. Munoz can get you points, but the reverse can also happen. Maybe Van Dijk scores that bullet header finally. So I think
it's never a cushioned header, is it?
It's never a cushion. It's always the bullet.
Never a diving header. It's always.
Who used to score cushioned headers? I feel like there was this player who used to just glide into the box. Maybe Roy Keane. I don't know if you remember. His headers were always cushioned, I felt. Anyway, we digress. So I think if you make picks that are longer term and they deliver and your chip strategy lands and you get lucky, I think that's an important element to it, then it's a recipe for having a very, very good season. And actually, it's a great example that you've used because it shows that to do very, very well in FPL and top 1K is fantastic. You don't have to do a lot. You don't have to have that one player that nobody has or those 5 players that nobody has. I see people, I love Alex Volo, for example, his play style and everything. But he's like, this week I'm captaining whatever, that Wolves defender or Krejci. Or this week I'm captaining something else. So you don't have to play that way. It may be fun for you, but to get good ranks or a great rank, you don't have to play that way. You can play the normal way, a sensible way, and just get very lucky that season.
What I like about it is that, like, Andy almost like taunt people. He'll sit there and about, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do this. No, I'm going to roll. And his comments are all like, you've got to sell. And it's like, he thrives on it. And I love it.
I feel like as a content creator, we are guilty of this, because every week we sit and we say, what should we do? Should we sell this guy? Should we buy this guy? Let's rank them. Let's do this. Let's see who are the nice players to buy this week. And then you're looking at your team and thinking, yeah, maybe I can do that. Maybe I should do that. And then, maybe most times their advice should be just roll, but that would make for a very boring podcast. Now, I'm not saying we do it intentionally. We have to treat everyone, right? Some people do need to make a transfer. Some people don't. And so we have to cater to everybody. But I do think that the more you listen to content, the more you get the urge to do something. Because if we were football players, what do you think improves performance? Running faster. So if you're now trying to think that in FPL terms, you're saying, how can I improve things? By doing stuff. I can't just say I'm not going to do anything. But often not doing anything can also lead to luckier results.
Yeah. I suppose it's a bit like comparing Xavi Hernandez to Matt Letizia. Letizia, he'll hit them spectacular things 3 or 4 times a season. Everyone will remember them. But it's just that solid 5-yard metronomic passing of Xavi that, takes a team to that kind of greatest ever level.
Agreed.
You had Trout on the wire last season. I suppose I should have said this earlier. You call him James and I call him Trout. And people might wonder who we're talking about.
James or Trout, I go with James first because we have a Solio server just for us, the founding team, and pretty much everyone's name starts with J, apart from me and Sertalp, whose names have been changed on that server to start with J as well. So I'm Dras and he's Jertalp. So because there's Johnny, there's Jorgen, there's James. So that's why J is the first thing that I think of when I'm talking about a Solio guy.
Right, I see. Well, to me, I guess like that is named after a fish. I don't know. It's just so random. So, yeah, you had Trout on the wire last season, and one quote which stood out for me was when he said, "I cannot express the extent to which the solvers are not just given a solution. They are very much a tool you use to find the best solution for yourself." This is a quote I feel many would disagree with, in that the prevalent belief is the main use of solvers is to press the button and follow the guidance. Do you agree with Trout's quote? I feel you probably do. And 100%. Do you feel that is how the majority use them? And if you do agree with Trout's opinion, what is the best way to personalize them for ourselves?
So 100% agree with him. And it's actually one of the things that irritate me when I see on Twitter and stuff where, he just uses the solver, right? Using the solver, there's an analytics Discord and there's also Solio Discord where people are constantly talking all day just on what are they changing? What are they editing? What else could they do? What is the positional share? What are the minutes for this player? There's so many things to think about when you're using it that to just limit it down to you're just pressing a button to get the answer and what should I do is so disrespectful. But I get it. People would rather say that this is a form of cheating, that's why I'm losing, than actually saying I'm going to make the effort and learn it more. And so understood why people would do that. But how you would change it to your beliefs, I think you have to start dipping your toes in the water first, like you're doing. Start using it, understanding what is it trying to tell me. Okay, these are predicted points for my team. What the hell is predicted points? Why should I bother with a 4.8 for this player versus 4.5? What does it even mean? How can it be sure about this stuff? Then you dabble in it. Then you start to challenge it. Then you start to also realize that this week I'm running after this one player whose expected points are 4.7 and I'm selling a player who's 4.5. Maybe I don't need to do that. So the solver is trying to just always constantly keep you in check for the decisions that you're making and just making sure that you're not doing something stupid. If you're taking a hit to captain Salah, maybe the solver will tell you go for it because you're increasing your risk and that 4 points can be made by the risk that you're taking because you're selling Haaland, getting Salah. Of course, it means you can also drop or double in rank, but you're doing that for a purpose and that will be fine. There's many ways to engage with these models. My first way for people to tell them to do is load up your team, look at your team, and look at some of the players that the solver is recommending. If you don't like them, ask yourself why. So if it's trying to recommend to you that you should buy Sesko, you should then say, you know what, I think the solver is wrong. He's not going to start every game. Go change his minutes. It'll stop recommending. Solvers doesn't have, it's just an Excel sheet behind this. So you can tell the Excel sheet that, you're wrong, and then your output will be even higher quality. And the more you do it, the better quality results you will get. At some point, you can also start to split your decisions and say, you know what, this week, if I did transfer Enzo to Wilson, what does that mean? Versus if I kept Enzo, what does that mean? How do my transfers change? Look at your transfer path over the next 5 weeks. And then don't just decide between Enzo stay or Enzo go. Decide that if I keep Enzo, then you know what? I can get Anthony Gordon for game week 31. Maybe I can captain him. That's a nice path. I like it. So people who use models, this is a famous saying by, why is his name not coming to me? Anyway, it'll come to me. It's a famous saying where people who use models pick paths. They don't pick players, right? This is from Dilsky. He says, you pick paths. You're not deciding this week what you're doing. You're deciding this week I'm not doing this. The other week I'm doing this. Then I'll do that. Then I'll do that. That's the path I'm picking. And if that means that I have to avoid Thiago, for example, so be it. Because I think I can get points through another path. I think that's how you should engage in solvers. You should get used to the fact that your one move is not one move. This is not a free hit. It has to be what path is this team going to? And that's what models can teach you.
That's really interesting. because I always look at the players, and maybe that is the mistake. You know, I do come up with plans, but I just look at them from the perspective of the player, if that makes sense. Player first.
Yeah. It's a different thing to get more used to. And as somebody who doesn't use solvers too much myself, I also am guilty of this, where sometimes I go, you know what, you're telling me to keep Enzo this week so I can get in die next week against Burnley. I'm not doing that. I'm just getting Dango this week because he's changing in price. We're all guilty of that. And that's fine. That's fine. We can dabble in it. We don't have to blindly follow whatever the model is saying, but at least you know that there are alternative routes available. And what that particularly helps me is just think about it. Like when I'm then on the tube over the week, I'm thinking, maybe Ndiaye next week is not bad. He is home to Burnley. Maybe I'm coming around to it. Nah, I'm not going there. He looks terrible. I watched him against Man United. He's not there. I'll stick to my Dango plan. It just helps you talk to somebody else who's telling you things that are not on Twitter, that are, well, often there are similar things, but it'll tell you things and it'll engage your brain in a different way, where this is another way you could do it in your next 3-4 transfers.
Yeah. One thing I always think is like, if the player blanks, will I still want him next week? So like,
yeah, that's a good way.
Game week 31, for example, if we bring in Harry Wilson, he's got Burnley, great game. But then the week after he's got Liverpool. So if Harry Wilson blanks against Burnley, do I still want him against Liverpool? And when I'm doing well, I can ignore these players, and when I'm doing badly, it's like I've got to take the risk, I've got to take the chance, and it's really hard. Like,
I hear you. But this is what helps tilt to your question that you asked earlier. By looking at fixtures and having a sort of a plan with every player, and then asking yourself, has something really changed? Okay, Wilson blanked against Spurs, but do I not want him for Burnley anymore? I'm going to keep him, right?
Yeah. You are, of course, primarily associated nowadays with the FPL Wire, which is the biggest multi-person podcast in the FPL space. One of your co-hosts is a legendary late riser who, for me, he was the first real rock and roll FPL superstar, getting so close to winning the game with sensational risk-taking and daring. However, in recent years, he has struggled to attain the same heights. Do you feel this is a reflection on the way the game is going, almost like a reflection of real football, with the Mavericks defeated by the sports scientists in the data? Or is there a way for the instinctive gut pick approach to still be consistently successful?
It's a tough question.
I don't think it's because of the field. Riser as an example. It's not a personal. You know, I'm not trying to cause issues.
No. Look. To have, I think with him himself, it's like a victim of your success kind of thing. That when you have 3 years or many other years, he also had outstanding finishes, but those 3 years really stand out. The top 200 3 years. It's like there's an expectation to do it more regularly. But it's not easy to do that regularly. You do have to get lucky to get there. You have to have a very different way of thinking, plus get lucky to get there. Like I would never, the way I play, I would struggle to hit top 200k, even if I get lucky in a season, because I don't play that way. I'm not really playing to win FPL. He's playing to win FPL. So to answer your question, his odds of finishing very high one season, I think they're still the same because of his play style. Because he will still back himself on what he's seeing, which essentially means that oftentimes a lot of game weeks, he ends up with different players to the field. If you look at me, Zofar, and him, his team all pretty much looks different for the whole season, or 4 or 5 players look different, and he continues with that. So he needs one of those seasons where those 4 or 5 consistently do well, and he hits it out of the park. So you always need luck to have those finishes. Nobody can claim, we've talked about Andy, Let's Talk FPL just now. He has had a steady season, but he will always acknowledge that it's luck that got him to 1,000. Now, without luck, maybe it would have been 10,000 or 20,000. So you still need, for good ranks, you need to play well, but you need to get lucky for great ranks. And so I do think there's a little bit of a probability in play here where he had those 3 seasons where he did get the rub of the green, and it's not just easy to get it again in the next 3-4 years. So if I was to predict, I think in the next 2-3 years, he'll have another great season. But there is a little bit of course, the field has gotten better. Why has the field gotten better? I sometimes go on these analytics discords, or there's 2 types of people that have gotten better, which don't follow football and don't play FPL so much, but they're still doing well. Why? Because 500,000 people follow Andy Let's Talk FPL. 200,000 people follow Harry. There's Focal, there's Raptor, there's so many other people. Even you can add FPL Wire to that. People who are much more engaged in the game in terms of what kind of decisions do we need to make every week. Now, when you increase the player base, it doesn't mean everybody's better. It just means the chances of other people getting lucky is higher. If there's 1 million more people playing and watching content, the chances of about 10,000 of those getting luckier than you are a lot higher than they were 5 years ago. That's the first thing. Second type of people are the ones who are using solvers. They don't need to watch football. They don't need to, I mean, many of them do, to be clear, but they don't need to. They can follow, the top 3 paths and decide, okay, I like this or I like this. They can go into the channels and say, okay, am I right that Sabosla is a good pick? Okay, yeah, fine. Right, I'll pick that. And even within the analytics, there will be people who get very lucky in a season and not so lucky in a season. So I've added the people who are on YouTube, 1 million people who are extra on the YouTube who get lucky in a year. People now who use models who get lucky in a year. Those are just harder to beat in general.
Yeah, I think last week or the week before, Ragabolly from Live FPL, he did a Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and he said there's still over 8 million teams active in the game at the minute. I mean, 5 years ago, we only had 8 million teams.
Yeah,
it's so big. I also think short form content, people can go and watch 2 60-second videos and they've got 2 really good strategies and they don't have to put any effort in. I think these things are all contributing.
And they can, more than just that the content is there, the odds of more people being engaged means the odds of people getting luckier than you is also a lot higher. I think that's the point that I want to emphasize. There's a guy in my office league. He's still running 5-Man City. He still has Semenyo, Foden, Gehi, O'Reilly and Haaland. He's running with them and he refuses to make a transfer. He's ahead of me because he keeps striking it out of the park. Like, he's got just those right players. He didn't have Gabriel for the double game week. Well, he captained Rice. So it can happen that when you're up against 1 million other people, that even if you think you're making better decisions than them, you just have to accept that some of them will get luckier than you.
He'll be desperate for Newcastle to lose to Man City in the Cup.
He doesn't even know what are the implications of it.
Something you've just said, you don't play to win FPL. Why not?
Because I think the odds are too low. Like, if I was to play this game for 100 years, so if you were doing a simulation and every single day we were doing a season, right? Let's think of like a Black Mirror episode. Then I'd play to win, because I would think that I would get 1,000 tries and every time I would try to just simply play to win, because one of the years I will win. I play to do well in the game, knowing that the chance of me winning are so minuscule that it's not worth playing the other way. I respect people who play to win. I respect people who chase really, really high ranks, like I'm talking top 100 ranks, and don't mind finishing 5 million. And that's fine. But I would feel a lot worse where I chase winning the game and then I finish in 5 million and then I'm like, I wasted a year doing nothing. I get much more of a adrenaline rush by having a good season where I felt I made good decisions. I finished in the top 5,000 and a lot of times I made the right calls. I predicted that Salah will have a great season. I predicted that Palmer will be the next big thing coming out of Chelsea. And yeah, I didn't win FPL, but the odds of me winning FPL, man, they're tiny. I could get supremely lucky all 38 game weeks and still lose or not win. So you're talking...
I saw a tweet from a while back, somebody who had Solly March as captain that year came second because by about 4 points, 5 points, out of his control, and he got it right. He got it right to win. I don't know if I could live with that. I'd be banging on the door every day.
I would take it as a moral victory anyway. And I think the other thing is, to be honest with you, as a content creator, you feel more comfortable to make decisions that are accretive in value every single week than saying, go for broke, guys, don't captain Haaland every week and then see what happens. People will be like, you're an idiot, man. Haaland's doing so well. So it's harder to play that style.
People definitely think I'm an idiot.
No, it's not. You know what I mean. Like, you can't do it every single week. And to win, the kind of filthy luck that you need, you pretty much know in the first 10 game weeks if you're going to be in for a shout to win or not.
I mean, I think what people don't really maybe take into consideration, there's 13 million teams just about. To win the lottery, you've got a chance of like 1 in 14 million. It's almost that with FPL.
It is. And there'll always be people. You know what I find funny? I have to do a little bit of a rant where there'll be somebody in the top 100 who, it has happened for the last 6 years. So this is not on anyone, who will start a YouTube channel, right? That, guys, I'm going to teach you how to play FPL, right? And that season they're like smashing it. Where are they now? Like, they disappear. Because ultimately you cannot, content creation and getting lucky don't go hand in hand as well. And if people try to link it, that my success is due to me finishing in the top 100. Now, we are all guilty of this. I've finished in the top, 100K in the last 15 years. But I'm only simply trying to do it to show consistent decision making. I'm not trying to show that because I finished that 1 year in the top 100, that I'm a great FPL manager, because I think there is too much luck involved in that. And so my rant is when people you start getting 10,000 followers for the guy who's finished 23. I mean, fair, celebrate it and congratulate him. It's amazing. But don't think he's the messiah because he's solved FPL. It's not easy to solve FPL. Yeah. It's not easy to get lucky.
Do you think I would enjoy FPL more if I played more boring?
Look, I don't claim to know you. I've only sort of, we all know each other through a screen. But I think you may not. Maybe you may not enjoy content creation as much, because your content creation has got a lot to do with, this is how I'm taking people on. This is what I'm doing different. And maybe that gives you the rush to play the game. The moment, if you have one season, if you're playing boring and you're not doing well, you'll quit. Like, I'm not, obviously not you. I'm talking about a player like you. You will quit because you're like, the one thing I had was I was having fun taking these punts, going against people. I'm playing boring and it's not working out. What's the point?
I am not having fun. The shed runs are only part performative.
Dude, how you do those 25 to 30 minute solo rants. People they talk to me about, your thoughts, your clarity of thoughts. How you express yourself without stopping and with so much passion is just, I'm in awe.
Well, thank you very much. No, I am tempted to go boring next year, but be brash about it. So
why not?
People say to me, for me, I feel a lot of people watch because it's Homer Simpson, where they're all crowded around, he's about to do something stupid. I feel I don't know, I just think it might be an interesting experiment. I feel a bit like a case study at the minute. And
I mean, maybe break it until your first wildcard play boring and then see how that takes you, right? I mean, but you are putting yourself in the hands of the FPL gods, where if you get lucky or unlucky, that is not representative of why that happened, not because you played boring or not boring.
Ironically, I did play boring 1 year and I finished top 10K.
Well, there you go. We've solved FPL here.
Ever since, I just feel like I'm chasing that sort of high of the finish, but kind of doing it on my own terms. And I feel like I'd rather be successful being boring than, this.
That's what most content creators get to, unfortunately. That if you ask them a question, they will tell you the boring answer because it's easier and safer and it's less likely to be wrong.
Do you think part of that is because of the grief they get as well? Because someone like Gianni, he gets a lot of stick, for, you've never had a top 10K rank and you're telling me this is a good player, what do you know, kind of thing.
Look, I don't mind it, right? I mean, we can't I can't speak for all content creators. I can speak for myself. We get so much love from people, like so many, if 500 people have liked, just simply clicked like on your video, that's amazing. Like 500 people have actually taken their time and clicked a button for you on the internet, right? So we should be grateful for anyone who watches anything that we put out. And it comes with criticism. Why wouldn't it? Some people's criticism can be not valid. Like, why the hell did you tell me to captain Bruno Fernandes? You can reply with like, man, it's your own decision. But it's completely valid. Like, you don't go to all the people who liked the video and thanked each one of them. So you cannot complain about people who are not happy with you either. Yeah. So I never take it personally if anybody is criticizing anything. If they didn't like what I put out as my content, if they didn't agree with my content, fair enough, man. Like, this is not about telling people that I'm the most right, because actually this is a game where you can't be. There is no right answer. So there have been weeks where I've got abuse in DMs to a lot of praise, where people say this is the best content, we love it. So you have to take it as both a part and parcel of the game. So I would never, I forgot now which track we were heading towards, but I just think that criticism is part of it. And some people, I do understand if they play safer because of that. I genuinely feel I play safer because it's the better way to get better ranks.
Yeah, I mean, there was 1 year where I was doing like a challenge where I could only pick players whose surname started with the letters of my name. And I only have one S in my name. And that was Sterling, Son, Salah, and there was somebody else as well, I can't remember. And I could only have one of them. And I was changing between them every week, and I was just missing everything. Saka, that was the other one. And It's like, I had Salah for the best fixture, and then Saka got 15 points. So I got Saka in because he had the best fixture. And then, Salah got 15 points. And then, I feel like with the boringness, I would have just picked one of them and it would have been fine. I would have got more points, whichever one of them I picked, than by trying to get the best one. But that is difficult because it goes back to targeting the fixtures, which is what I felt I was doing, but there's the luck element as well.
Yeah, I get it. Interesting strategy, though. I do see people playing these other formats within FPL. Like, you've seen Johnny who plays anti-FPL. There's people who play under 30 million budget FPL. These are fun ways, I think. I do wonder if you engage in multiple games in a season, whether it's through the official game or something else, whether it makes taking bad luck a little bit easier, because invariably you'll get lucky in one game. Like, I play FPL draft with a bunch of this meme FC on Twitter. I don't know if you know Marcin and FPL 420, Pig and these guys. So I'm getting so lucky this year in draft. I'm leading the league. And there's so many weeks where that draft team of mine beats my regular team in points. And actually, it has eased the pain a little bit, even though I don't share it with anybody. I don't boast about, I'm doing so well in draft this year. But actually, just personally speaking, it eases the pain. So maybe I might think about doing more of these side gigs next year.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did draft once, and somehow I ended up with Son, Kane, Haaland, and De Bruyne. And
was it like a 4% draft or something? Yeah, you got to have 10. You got to have 10.
Yeah, it was just too boring because my team was too strong. Yeah. It was like, you're playing a computer game on easy.
But the key of draft is, and I know we're not discussing draft here, but it's not the top 5 picks. It's the ones after that. It's who are you picking as your 4th and 5th midfielders, your striker, your 5th defender, and that, it gets into a level of engagement with the game where I was researching which waiver should I do for which Wolves defender ahead of the double game week. I got the guy who scored. So it's kind of a different high.
Yeah. No, that's good. Right, to get back to my questions, because we've got on a nice little tangent there. How did you find joining a show as established as The Wire? And how has being on the show and discussing the game in such depth with elite operators like Zofar and Late Riser impacted the way you play the game?
That's a great question. I I'm an in-depth guy myself, right? So it's not, the depth of it has only been good, and I was a listener before I joined, so it was very easy to slip into the shoes because it was simply a show that I knew the format and I knew that how those guys are. As it happens, I've known Zofar and Late Riser since since 2012. So we chatted even though I was not a co-host on the podcast. So from those points of view, it was fairly easy. And in fact, I'm going to be honest here. People who know what I did before The Wire, I used to do burning questions on Scout. I used to do days of prep. Yeah, I would sit on a Sunday night, open my Word document, start putting what is the agenda, what are the visuals that we would need to show. It was also my first one. When you're starting out, you're a little bit more, I want everything, planned.
Like guys, me with my 1,500 words of questions.
Exactly. But with these guys, what I noticed is we just send each other a few screenshots on a Monday. Hey, let's talk about this. Oh, yeah, let's talk about this. Oh, I saw this interesting chart. Let's talk about this. That's it. We don't speak. Then an hour before the podcast, we'll be like, hey, should we put an agenda down? Yeah, okay, we'll talk about this stuff. That's it. Then we just show up. So it just makes for a very interesting discussion where, because we all know that we've done our research otherwise, because we're all engaged players, we follow football, we watch the games, we just talk. So from a prep point of view, actually, ironically, even though it's more in depth, I do less prep on The Wire than I would have done if I was still on Burning Questions, which is a weird thing to say. But I really enjoy it because it was the one part I never missed when I was a listener. And now it just makes it easier because I get to hear their views live. And there's so many times where after the pod, I'm like, okay, now I know who I'm captaining, or now who I know who I'm making a transfer on.
It was the first one I watched. I used to be I used to only read. I'd get articles and I'd read articles, and it took me a long time to get into YouTube as a whole for anything beyond music. And then I watched The Wire, and it's kind of set me off onto this path where I just do nothing but watch FPL content. To expand upon that, you have regularly shared the streams with some of the most knowledgeable people the game has ever seen, from Sonaldo and Trophy Mo to Late Riser and Zoff and JC and Trout, as well as many different guest appearances over the years. What are the biggest lessons you have learned from your partners, both in the sense of playing the game, but also how to discuss and express your ideas to the viewing audience?
Interesting one. So Sonaldo was the first one. I think what I learned from him is just be yourself. He used to be himself. If he didn't know something, he would ask. On the pod itself, he would be okay to be vulnerable, right? To say that, you know what, I don't know. I think that's a learning. We don't have to come out and show that we know everything. We can sometimes say, I don't know the answer, or I'm not sure between who is the better pick, right? I think from Zofar, you learn organization and way of thinking. He runs the flow of our podcasts. How he delivers his pieces is very articulate, and he keeps the show going because he keeps us in check. And I think that's a great learning. I could probably not do his role given how, me and Late Riser are a little bit more haphazard in terms of the ideas. So it's great to have him, and that's a learning. With Late Riser, it's his passion. Like, if it'll be a topic where he has more to say, he will stop us and say, wait, we need to talk about this more, right? Because he's passionate about it. He believes in what he's talking about, and he wants everybody to hear his point of view because he thinks it matters. And he is always the guy who's chasing us for, guys, you need to do this, this, or this, because he loves what he does. And I think that's a great learning, that ultimately you need to be enjoying what you do. And he loves to talk about football and FPL. Johnny, I've learned this year that you can be boring and still do well. Like, honestly, I thought I was boring. With him, it's like he is so Jekyll and Hyde, where certain weeks, for weeks, he'll do nothing. And then suddenly he'll be like, I'm playing my free hit because Khalid is benched. I'm playing Marmoush as captain. Right? And you go, whoa, what was that about? But in that impulsiveness is always a long-term game that he has in mind. And I think that's a great learning. How he plays, he does engage with risk. And this is also true for James. They do engage with risk in a way that I didn't know you should or you can. I was of the old school thinking where protect your EO, don't go against the popular captain, make the transfer that everybody else is making so you stay with the pack. that's not really the case. And that's been a little bit of a learning. Now, we're early into our podcasting journey as co-host, me and Johnny, but I am going to monitor how he navigates this season, for example, and then we'll take it from there. But there's so many great managers that I've spoken to that are either great in delivering their content, or they're great in their decision making, or a mix of the two.
Yeah, I really enjoy the Solio podcast. Obviously, when Trout's on as well, I love it. I'm a proper fanboy for him. I hope you let him know.
I will definitely do.
Like, I wanted to text him about my wild card and say, oh, you know, what do you think I can do to engage with risk well here? But, like, I don't know, he's become a mythical figure in my head. Yeah, but it's funny, though, because I was doing the Sol versus Solio stuff, and it was about the projection models, but over the course of the conversations, it's become more about risk engagement and how to engage with risk better and using them as part of that. And yeah, I mean, I just really, it's what fascinates me, like the best way to engage with risk. And I feel like this season has been a bit of an experimental one to see the different things, like going 5 weeks early with my wild card to try and spike those hauls in that 5 weeks and then transfer my way to a wild card-ish team where it'll be a bit safe. I don't think it's going to work. I mean, let's be fair, nothing's working.
No, but it's you hit the right point in what everybody wants is ultimately to do well. What everybody or many people don't like is that people play in a way which doesn't suit them, or they don't like, or what they don't like is everybody's doing the same thing, sheep, boring. So, but what they're actually saying is they want to do well, but playing a little bit riskier, which means they could do worse or they could do better than the crowd. That's what we are trying to help people do with Solio. Now, this is not a big advertisement for Solio, right? There are other things you can do with the same thing. You can play around with captaincy. You can do, you can wildcard early. You can play around with chips. All of that is just a different way of achieving the objective of you want to be a little different to people, but also do well doing that. So embrace a little bit of talking to people who help you achieve that risk, or using platforms that help you think about risk in that way, which I think Solio is.
I think it comes back to a bit of like humility as well, to be confident enough to say, like, Sonaldo, I don't know the answer, or to look at a program like Solio and say, this knows more than me, you know, this can take in more data than I can and process it quicker. Because, like, we can do that for maybe, 3, 4, 5 players a week, but they can do it for 500. And that's something I'm learning, I need to be a bit less up my own ass.
Everyone's on their own journey on how they get there and people's goals are also different. Some people want that big haul or that big week so they can screenshot on X and say, I had this guy as captain and look, all you idiots, you got a Holland blank. Some people's objectives is to essentially just play week by week. And some weeks they'll have a really bad week and they won't say anything. And the great weeks they have a great week, they'll be like 100 all out. And that's also fine. I just think everybody has a different way. And if your objective is to do well for the whole season, a little bit more boring, a little bit taking help from predicted points is only going to help you. They're not here to ruin that.
If I'm honest, I feel what I really want the most from the game is to respect my own ability and to believe that I'm actually good at the game. And I don't think I do. And I feel like there's a big part of me that does all this risky stuff to give myself an excuse for failing. I feel like I'm being a bit vulnerable here. I'm meant to be, this is about you, not about me. We are in a philosophy
class here, or a therapy session. But look, what I would say is it's understandable that you would think like that. But I would also say don't cloud the outcome don't make the outcome cloud your decision-making in terms of how you played. Right? Selling Henderson and Munoz as an example, when they were looking absolutely rubbish and they have a blank and
conceded 3 to Burnley. 3 to Burnley.
Conceded 3 to Burnley is totally fine.
Well,
So that doesn't mean that you were bad. It's just bad luck.
Yeah. I just want to get better. I want to get consistently better. The more I fail in the public sphere, and I suppose this goes back to what you were saying earlier as well about playing it safer. It's not, I don't see it as safer, I see it as better. I don't play the game very well on the whole. I feel like I can when I'm ahead, but when I'm behind, I really struggle. Right. And it's the tilt thing. And it's something, this is what I'm hoping to learn. Like, in a way, this kind of high profile, for me anyway, like it's different when you're playing with 5 of your mates to when you've got, 4,500 people watching you ranting in your shed. It's like, I don't want to be a joke figure.
It's not about that. People like your passion.
I mean, it is a bit.
It's not about. Is a bit. I mean, sure, if you play boring, there'll be less moments where you have to go to the shed. But I can assure you, even in boring play style, there are weeks where things just go against you. Like, it's not just got to do with playing Maverick and then things not working out.
Yeah. FPL, this is actually quite fitting for the next question. FPL is a game which inspires strong emotions. And those emotions can often be negative. Sometimes they can even drive a man to rant and rave in his shed at the middle of the night. What is the lowest FPL has left you feeling? How do you manage your emotions around negative outcomes? And what advice do you have for others who may struggle with the disappointments of the game?
So this is a good question. And I don't know if I can point to a moment. I mean, I do remember one where my kids were like, so this must be like 6 years ago. And I was close to a top 10K and Sterling missed a penalty or something, which he normally doesn't take a penalty, and he took it, and he was low owned, and we were out. Usually on weekends, if I'm with the kids, we were out, and I snapped at my kids like anything, like, for no particular reason of theirs, like, wear your shoes or whatever. So it's like a memory burn that I remember this moment. And then afterwards I was questioning it, like, that was so dumb. Like, they have nothing to do with me playing FPL. They have no idea that Sterling missed a penalty. They didn't deserve your mood swing in that way. And that was a little bit of a moment for me where it was like a reality check, where I was like, you cannot let it spill over in your current life or real life. And I think in the last few years, I've been a lot better with managing it, where things are not working out, where either I will put the phone away, where I feel, okay, Haaland scored 2 goals. He's playing Fulham. I've not got him captain. I've just put the phone away. I'll look at it now in 40 minutes. Now, I'll be very anxious for those 40 minutes, but at least I won't be constantly looking at my phone and I won't be snappy, right? And many times he has not scored anymore, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. So it's not too bad. It's easier said than done, though. And I do feel that this game does take out too much emotion for a free game for a lot of people. And the easiest way, what I 100% do, is if I'm having a bad game week, I will not come on X. And some people will say it as, oh, this guy's hiding because, he'll come on X when he's having a good week. He'll celebrate his players. When he's not having a good week, he's not there. Well, it's not because I want to hide. It's essentially because if I'm already feeling bad, you know what makes it worse? Somebody else celebrating and saying, yes, I have Haaland captain. It triggers you even more, right?
So, you idiots who don't have him.
And now, nothing against that guy who's posting. You are allowed to celebrate. Let's not be the celebration police. But I can control myself and not go on social media when something like that is going on. So as a rule, and you can actually monitor me, you will see my activity on Twitter will be highly correlated to the points I'm getting that game week. Not because I like to hide, like I just said. It's because if I'm having a bad week, I'll switch off X, I'll spend some time with the family, and you feel a lot better. You're not triggered anymore. That's one thing that I would recommend to people. Don't come on X when you're having a bad game week. Start having fights with people, getting triggered by people on, oh, it was a good decision, bad outcome. Forget all of that. Let people celebrate. You do your own thing. You knew it was a 50-50, or you took a risk and it didn't work out. Suck it up, and man, after 2 days, you'll feel fine. And that's, I think, the biggest recommendation that I can do. And maybe that applies for me, it even applies to match of the day. If I had a terrible week, I cannot watch the highlights of that particular game where the player I didn't own has scored like a brace. That Thiago hat trick, I remember. Somebody was playing it on TV, my son. I was like, can you switch that off? I just don't want to see Thiago score this hat trick. I've just literally sold him. And I didn't obviously say all of this to him, but I just said, look, for me, I'll cope better if I just don't think about it for a little while. And somebody would listen to this and say, man, grow up, man. This is just a game. But if you are feeling things, you can't just tell yourself, no, don't feel it. All you can do is just distance yourself. So there is this thing of, if you're on a tilt, forget about the game for 2-3 days. It is very hard for people like me who have to sit on a podcast 2 times a week talking about the game week. But for other people who are listening, who are maybe not content creators, switch off your phone, man. Don't listen to any podcast. And then you'll feel a lot better by Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, that's great advice, you know. Not all of us can go to the shed and have a have a run. I like going for a walk. You know, I like to, like, before my shed runs, and when I have good game weeks, I just grab my camera, I go for a walk and talk about the game, and it gets it out of my head, just verbalizing it. And
I mean, you're good at that. I would not be able to do that, to be honest with you. There are weeks where
you never know unless you try.
No, but the thing is, like, there are moments where I have told, to be, again, being very honest with you, there have been moments where I've told Zoff and later, I don't feel like talking about FPL this week, man. Like, there was this moment where there was a leak that Ekitike is starting, and then I captained him and he didn't start. And it was at that moment, I feel this season, that was the lowest of lows for me. Because at that moment, I was like, I just don't want to play this season. You know, it was almost that kind of a low, where it was like nothing is working out, where I have a Kitike who not many people have, who's got a great fixture, and he's leaked to start, and then he doesn't start. So there was a moment where I was like, I just don't want to talk about FPL this week. I just don't want to do it. So it's tough. I find it tough.
Right. I know that you have to get away in a couple of minutes. Yeah. I've been keeping track. So to end on a positive note, what is your favourite memory from FPL and how has it enriched your life?
Oh man, I would have had to think about that a little bit.
I'm not all about the negativity.
Well, I'll tell you the strangest memory. The strangest memory was when Aguero happened. I had Aguero captain. Winner? Yeah, I had Aguero captain, and I'm a Man United fan. And so that got me into my first ever top 10K. Now, in the moment, of course, in fact, I remember that moment so well that I almost broke the TV remote. I almost threw it at the wall because, you know, you almost won the league and Aguero scored. But afterwards, then I realized I might have gotten into the top 10K here because of this Aguero goal. It was the strangest feeling that I've ever had. And it was probably the first time where you feel a little bit of this conflict between doing well in FPL and supporting your team. And you have to be honest about it. Sometimes it happens, not in the moment, but before or after, right? So that was the strangest one. The happiest, look, I talk about this all the time. The one moment which made people look at my chip strategy a lot more was that season where it was that triple captain Mo Salah. I don't know if you played at that time, but there was game week 26 when Mo Salah had Norwich at home and Leeds at home. Everybody was triple captaining Salah.
Yeah, 87 points.
And then on Thursday night or Friday morning even, I just tweeted wildcard. And it started from everybody saying, what an idiot, to all the big, you know, Ben Krillin, Andy, let's talk FPL. Everybody then over the day also pressing their wildcard button and I had not used any solvers. It was just basically me. I was on a holiday. I was in Dubai at the time. And I just thought that if you wildcard now, you can get this guy, you free hit this week, and then you can get like 50 players in the next 5 game weeks, and you free hit and you get another 11 double game weekers. This is amazing. So I had not fully thought through it. I just wrote wildcard, and what that led to was this amazing season I had, and of course, outcome dependent, right? These things are better in your memory when the outcome is great. Salah did very well. Despite that, I didn't triple captain. And I think that is the most satisfying FPL memory that I have.
It's a nice memory, you know. Yeah. So, right, well, we will call it there. Thank you for coming on the channel. I really appreciate it. I feel I'm going to reflect on this conversation for a long time, watch it back once it's edited. Is there anything you'd like to say? And
no, man, thank you for having me. I do want to say that people who are here because they wanted to listen to me, I think your channel in itself is great. So do subscribe to FPL Nightmare. I love the way you articulate your thoughts. It's very real. It doesn't feel like you're telling people what to do. You're sharing your emotions. So I do love that. And I did want to just say that keep doing what you're doing. You're a very genuine guy and you're a breath of fresh air in the FPL community. So that's all I will plug, actually.
Well, thank you very much. You can find Pras on Solio on the FPL Wire and with Trophy Mo on FF Scout.
Right.
Thanks again, Prouch. Prouch. Oh man, I don't even know what I was trying to say there. So there you have it, a stunning insight into one of the greatest minds FPL has ever known. This season may well end up being a write-off for me, but now I look forward to the future with optimism, with hope, and with a belief that maybe, just maybe, I can become the FPL player I have always hoped I could be. I am so grateful to Pras for giving up his time, and I hope you have taken as much out of our conversation as I have. All that is left for me to say is thank you for watching. We will see you next time.